You think you know what's safe to bring in your carry-on. Most travelers do. And that confidence is exactly what gets people in trouble. Because in 2026, the items causing the biggest problems at airport security aren't the obvious ones. They're the things that look completely allowed. The everyday stuff you've packed dozens of times without a second thought. Until one quiet rule, one updated enforcement standard, or one officer's screen turns your normal bag into a serious problem. What starts as a routine checkpoint can suddenly mean a bag search, a long delay, or a fine that costs more than your plane ticket. In some cases, travelers don't even realize they've broken a rule until they're already pulled aside, and by then, it's too late to fix it. And the worst part? Airlines and security rarely warn you ahead of time, because what's allowed on paper isn't always allowed in practice. The looks harmless, but isn't carry-on mistake. The fastest way to get flagged at airport security isn't by packing something obviously dangerous. It's by bringing something that looks harmless to you, but suspicious on an X-ray screen. Every day, travelers are stopped for items they've carried for years without issue. A small gadget, a toy from a child's backpack, a compact tool tossed in just in case. On the outside, it feels ridiculous. Nothing sharp, nothing explosive, nothing illegal. So how could this possibly be a problem? The issue is how these objects appear when they're layered, folded, or powered off inside a bag. On a scanner, innocent shapes can resemble prohibited items or components of something far more serious. And once a bag raises that kind of question, the situation changes quickly. At that point, intent doesn't matter. Explanations don't matter. Security isn't judging what you meant to bring. They're responding to what they see. And that difference is where travelers feel blindsided. Most people assume common sense will protect them here. But airport security doesn't operate on common sense. It operates on risk, and that's only the beginning. Replicas and lookalikes, fake stuff, real finds. One of the most expensive mistakes travelers make is assuming that fake automatically means safe. At airport security, it doesn't. Replica weapons, novelty items, and realistic props are flagged every day, not because they're functional, but because they look convincing enough to raise concern. Toy guns, decorative knives, movie props, even realistic replicas meant for display can appear indistinguishable from real threats on an X-ray screen. And once that happens, the process escalates fast. Security officers aren't trained to guess your intentions. They're trained to treat anything that resembles a weapon as a potential risk. That means your bag can be pulled, questioned, and in some cases, referred for civil enforcement, even if the item was never capable of causing harm. This is where travelers get completely caught off guard. They expect a warning or simple confiscation. Instead, some are hit with fines that can climb into the thousands, often over $4,000, for something they truly believed was harmless. And what makes it worse is how common this is. Most people never see this coming. Liquids you thought were okay. Liquids are where travelers feel the most confident and where they make some of the easiest mistakes. Most people know the basic rule, but they don't apply it to everything. Lotion, face cream, hair products, sunscreen, even medical-looking containers often get a free pass in a traveler's mind. And food is almost never questioned. A sauce packet, a dip, a homemade dressing sealed in a small container. It doesn't feel like a liquid problem. But at security, gels are gels, no matter what they're used for. If it spreads, pours, or smears, it's treated the same way as shampoo. Unlabeled containers raise even more suspicion, especially when the contents aren't obvious on a scan. And once the volume crosses the limit, the item isn't checked. It's rejected. That's where frustration sets in. Travelers argue that it's food or that it's barely any liquid at all. But the rule doesn't change, and neither does enforcement. Most people learn this lesson the hard way, and that's just liquids. Aerosols are, honestly, one of the fastest ways to turn a normal screening into a stressful situation. Travelers pack them because they've seen them allowed before. Deodorant, hairspray, body spray, sometimes even pepper spray for personal safety. They're sold everywhere, clearly labeled, and just, feel routine. So when a bag gets stopped for one, the reaction is usually panic, not guilt. What most people don't realize is that aerosols are treated differently than standard liquids. Many are classified as flammable or pressurized materials, and once they pass a certain size, the rules change completely. A container that looks identical to a smaller travel version can suddenly become a prohibited item. This is where travelers feel misled. They followed the liquid limits. They packed what they thought was allowed, but enforcement doesn't care how familiar the product is. If it exceeds the limit or falls into a restricted category, it's flagged. And when that happens, the item isn't debated. It's removed, documented, and sometimes escalated. Here's where it gets less obvious. Beauty tools are rarely seen as a risk, which is exactly why they cause so many problems at security. Cordless curling irons and straighteners, especially the gas-powered kind, are designed to look sleek and harmless. They're marketed for travel. They fit easily into a carry-on. And most travelers assume that means they're safe to pack without thinking twice. The issue isn't the tool itself, it's what's inside it. Many of these devices contain gas cartridges or heating elements that fall under hazardous material rules. If they're packed incorrectly, missing a safety cover, or placed in the wrong bag, they can trigger a serious response at the checkpoint. That's when fear sets in. What should have been a routine screening suddenly involves bag checks, questions, and long delays. In some cases, the device is confiscated on the spot. In others, the bag is treated as a potential hazard. And the frustrating part is this: some of these tools are allowed, but only under very specific conditions. And there's a tech twist you didn't expect. Batteries are everywhere in modern carry-ons, which is why travelers rarely think twice about them. A power bank, a spare battery, a small motor inside a gadget or travel accessory. To most people, it's just a charger or a convenience item, something airlines expect you to have. But at security, lithium batteries are treated with extreme caution, and scrutiny has increased noticeably. The reason is risk. Damaged, oversized, or improperly packed batteries can overheat, spark, or ignite. On an X-ray, it's not always clear whether a battery is compliant, safe, or even necessary. That uncertainty alone is enough to trigger a bag search. This is where confusion turns into stress. Travelers are asked questions they don't know how to answer. Capacity limits, battery types, whether something has been modified or not. And the longer it takes to clarify, the more serious the situation feels. What surprises most people is how often completely normal devices get flagged. Not because they're illegal, but because enforcement has tightened. But real trouble starts when enforcement steps in. So, here's the thing. Sharp tools are one of the most common reasons carry-on bags get pulled, and honestly, they're also one of the most misunderstood. Travelers aren't really thinking about weapons when they pack, say, a small screwdriver, a multi-tool, or that pocket knife they've had for years. These items just feel practical, maybe even forgettable, something left in a bag from daily life, not a deliberate choice at all. And that's why, the reaction is always the same: shock. On the screening side, though, there's just no gray area. Blades, points, and tools capable of puncturing or cutting are treated as security risks, no matter the size. A lot of these items actually rank among the most frequently discovered prohibited objects at checkpoints, and once they're found, things can escalate pretty quickly. What starts as an innocent oversight can turn into documentation, questioning, and in some cases, civil penalties. Travelers often expect a warning, or maybe a chance to just toss the item. Instead, they're faced with consequences they didn't even realize were possible. Who knew this was a weapon? Is the thought almost everyone has. And well, this next one catches almost everyone off guard. Powders are one of those categories travelers just assume are harmless, until, their bag gets stopped. Protein powder, pre-workout, baby formula, powdered drinks, these items feel routine, especially for long trips. But once a powder container hits a certain size, it draws immediate attention. Containers over roughly 12 ounces are often pulled for additional screening, opened and tested right there on the spot. That's where, honestly, annoyance can turn into anxiety. Travelers worry about contamination, spills, or just delays, all while they're trying to explain that it's just a supplement. But from a screening perspective, powders can't be cleared by appearance alone. They have to be verified. What frustrates people most is the inconsistency. One trip, nothing happens. The next, the same container triggers a full inspection. And in some cases, if the item can't be properly screened or raises concerns, it may be denied entirely. This extra scrutiny catches people off guard because it feels random, even when it's not. And yeah, we're not done yet. Most travelers plan their carry-on around one set of rules, and honestly, forget that those rules don't follow them overseas. What clears security in one country can actually be restricted or even outright prohibited in another. Foods that passed screening at departure? Yeah, those can be confiscated on arrival. Batteries and electronics allowed at home may violate local limits elsewhere. Even powders and supplements can trigger penalties depending on where you land. This is where confusion turns into anxiety. Travelers assume that once something is approved at one airport, it's safe for the entire trip. But international enforcement works differently. Authorities abroad aren't obligated to honor another country's screening decisions, and well, many don't. The shock comes at customs or secondary screening, when items are seized without warning. In some cases, travelers face fines. In others, the item is simply gone. No explanation, no appeal. What makes this worse is how quiet these differences are. Airlines rarely explain them, and most people don't realize the risk until they're already dealing with it. Now the consequences escalate. When security flags your bag, the consequences don't stop at confiscation. Many travelers assume the worst outcome is losing an item or maybe missing a few minutes at the checkpoint. But once an issue is documented, it can follow you beyond that screening. Certain violations can lead to civil penalties that reach into the tens of thousands of dollars, depending on severity and intent. There's also the ripple effect most people never consider. Trusted traveler status can be suspended or revoked. Future screenings can become more aggressive. In rare cases, law enforcement may get involved, not because of what you plan to do, but because of how the situation was categorized. And timing makes everything worse. Being pulled aside at the wrong moment can mean missing your boarding window or being removed from a flight altogether. That's when a simple packing mistake turns into a ruined trip. The fear isn't just about money, it's about control, suddenly losing it at the airport. But one final issue really trips people up. The biggest carry-on mistakes usually come from assumptions, not ignorance. Travelers rely on what worked last time. An extra small bag that was never questioned, a gadget that passed through dozens of checkpoints, food packed the same way for every trip. Over time, those experiences turn into rules people trust, even when the actual policies have changed. That's where reality hits. A rule is updated quietly, enforcement tightens without announcement, and suddenly, here's the uncomfortable truth about flying in 2026. The rules aren't just strict, they're evolving quietly. What feels allowed today can be questioned tomorrow. What passed through security last year can suddenly trigger a stop, a fine, or a missed flight. And most of the time, travelers don't find out until they're already standing at the checkpoint with no way to fix it. Airlines and security agencies don't announce every enforcement change. They update procedures. They adjust screening priorities. And they let travelers discover the consequences in real time. That's why packing based on memory is risky. Confidence doesn't protect you at security. Preparation does. Before your next trip, it's worth slowing down and thinking differently about what you carry on board. Because the cost of being wrong isn't just inconvenience anymore. And if this made you pause, that's the point.